Welcome to the Carl Jackson Show, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. Guys, I want to talk about the DNC convention and the Obama's appearance at the DNC convention. Obviously, you've had Tim Walz. I think he's a liability to the Democrat Party. I'm looking forward to a debate when it comes to him between both he and J.D. Vance. Also, when it comes to Kamala Harris wants to be defined by her speech at the DNC this week. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to define her by her policies. Kamala Harris has been in office for nearly 4 years. She's been a disaster right alongside Joe Biden for nearly 4 years. And the Obamas want us to waste a bunch of time and get distracted talking about them. I'm going to talk about them just briefly, but I'm going to spend this entire show introducing you to the real Kamala Harris. But I'm also going to talk to you briefly about the Obamas. The Obamas, in my opinion, began this DEI CRT nonsense, took it to the next level, if you will, and decidedly made America a racially divisive country once again, setting us back in race relations, in my opinion, nearly 50 years, just so that they could become rich, fat, and happy, if you will. So the Obamas spoke at the DNC convention on the second night of the convention. Guys, here's what I'm going to talk about today. Before I get to that, I'm going to react to those speeches because I think it's very important. Kamala Harris, she's a joke, but I'm not taking her lightly. And again, we'll introduce you to her. RFK Jr. dropping out of the race, likely endorsing Trump. The jobs report that came out earlier this week, where it was revised down 818,000 jobs. A clear sign that the economy isn't going so swell under the Biden-Harris administration. And let me say, America cannot afford another 4 years of Kamala Harris. Because what we saw this week was complete gaslighting, was complete hypocrisy. We saw a DNC convention that was full of, I don't know, it was like a celebration of abortion. It was hatred for Trump, hate, make you mad at Trump. But I didn't hear a lot of solutions of how the Democrat Party intends to make your life better, intends to make America more safer and more prosperous. Because the truth is, they don't intend to do it. They intend to go to Washington and get rich, fat, and happy, just like the Obamas did, just like Nancy Pelosi did, just like AOC did. It's funny how these people didn't make their money in the private sector working like the rest of us. They made their money by sucking off the government teat, if you will, TEET, and getting rich off of us, getting rich off of the platform that we gave them when some of us voted for them. It's amazing to me. And they had the audacity to try to knock actually private citizens, people that built businesses, that believed in the American dream. You have Michelle Obama that was not even proud of America until her husband became president. Then for some reason, I guess she was semi-proud of America. The Obamas are the great destroyers. Let me show you this video clip. This is what went viral. And everybody wanted to talk about this, but listen, guys, I was so tempted. I was so tempted to spend an entire podcast, an entire show talking about the Obamas and going after the Obamas. And then something hit me the next day after I watched their speeches. And I have to admit, I think that Michelle Obama is the best political speaker in the business, bar none. I don't think anyone is close. But the more that I thought about her speech and Barack Obama, in my opinion, his speech was it was too long and it seemed really petty. Michelle Obama has a gift. She would cut Trump and then she would inspire the crowd. That's a gift, but there was no substance there. It was the same old, same old. And under the Obamas, America was worse off after Obama left office. And remember, the economy soared once Trump came in because a lot of people were excited that we finally had a president that no longer hated America and no longer hated capitalism. But I want to introduce you to the clip that went viral. And then I'm going to expound on this. It's like there was I don't know, elite on elite crime, rich on rich crime. But here's what Michelle Obama said. This is the clip that went viral, and I think it's very important. Who's going to tell him the job he is currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs? That's what she had to say. Let's roll the clip. That is cut number, I apologize. That is cut number 3.
I want to know who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs.
All right, so listen, I got to give it to her. I thought that was a great line. I don't know if she came up with it. I don't know if someone wrote it, but I give it to her. It was a great line. Who's going to tell him that one of those, perhaps that job that he's seeking is one of those black jobs? Well, you guys know that unemployment numbers for blacks under the Obama skyrocketed. You guys know that it was the Obamas, if you will, Barack Obama and his administration, let me make sure that I pull this up and get it correct here, that ended the DC voucher program. Do you guys remember what the DC voucher program was? The DC voucher program basically allowed underprivileged minorities, blacks in particular, in DC to be able to get these vouchers and leave these disastrous schools in the DC area and be able to go to great schools like his daughters went to. But Obama cut that off. Here's a piece from U.S. News. This is way back from 2009. Despite giving lip service to education reform, which the Obamas did again last night. So despite giving lip service to education reform, the Obama administration has decided to put an end to the very successful DC school voucher program. This despite a United States Department of Education report that found students in the nation's capital that were provided with vouchers allowing them to attend private school through the DC Opportunity Scholarship Program had made statistically significant gains in reading achievement. But Obama cut that off. You know who eventually refunded that program? It was the Republicans under John Boehner as Speaker of the House. So Barack Obama kicked poor black underprivileged kids out of the schools that his daughters attended, or the school that his daughter attended, and it took Republicans once again to bring them back. This is the legacy of the Obamas. They can give great speeches, they say great things, but they were disastrous when they were in the White House. And in my opinion, they're just as disastrous now. Quite frankly, I wish they would go on and continue to make their hundreds of millions of dollars as they sit there and pretend like they're in touch with the rest of the American people. I don't care that people are wealthy, but I can't stand when fake people like the Obamas come out and they criticize American citizens, private citizens who have, or whether it's Trump, whether it's someone else, who have earned their money rightfully. And these people would not be living as fat as they are were it not for them living off the government dole, taking advantage of that platform. The real Obama was a great destroyer. David Limbaugh, the brother of Rush Limbaugh, wrote about this years ago. I won't go into detail, but he wrote a book about this. But let me just give you some of the things that you may have forgot about that occurred under the Obama administration. Last thing being the fact that he sicked the federal government on former President Trump to spy on him. All right, but it was Barack Obama and Eric Holder that were running guns. The Fast and Furious scandal, running guns across the Mexican border, American guns, hoping that they would be used for crime so that they could undermine the Second Amendment and the United States. Did you guys forget about, or do you remember the Benghazi scandal, right? When we had our ambassador in Benghazi killed, and then Barack Obama and his team, Susan Rice, Hillary Clinton, all came out and said, oh, it was because of some video, when nothing could be further from the truth. And then we had the IRS scandal when they went out after conservatives, auditing conservatives, going after conservatives because they were scared that Barack Obama would lose to 2012. And then just look at what Michelle Obama did earlier this week. Black jobs, black jobs. You guys remember Tavis Smiley said back in the day when Obama was still in office, he basically hasn't done anything for the black community. The black community is where, oh, we should have got that clip, Gabe. The black community, and I'm paraphrasing, is worse off under Barack Obama. This was Tavis Smiley. But you see the racial divisiveness that the Democrats and the Obamas want to continue to stir, because that's all they can do is stir hate. They can't make you prosperous, right? They can't do that. They can't make you safe. They were a disaster. Obamacare, you're going to pay less. A family of four is going to pay less in premiums and medical insurance. No, it was more. The Iran deal that strengthened Iran in the Middle East, turned their backs on Israel. Then there was the Tony Resco deal that any one of us would have gone to jail for, that illegal real estate deal that Obama made while he was a state senator. Don't forget the drone strike. And I mentioned the DC voucher program. These are the real Obamas. What you saw on stage last night a couple of nights back was just a show. We'll be back. Hey guys, Carl Jackson here, and I want to talk to you about Priority Gold. Economists warn that massive tax hikes could devastate your IRA and your 401k account as the stock market braces for impact. With inflation on the rise and global uncertainty looming, it's clear why central banks and savvy Americans are turning to gold. In times like this, Proverbs 21:20 reminds us to reserve what we built. Right now, that wisdom points us towards gold. If you haven't had your eye on gold, time to make it a priority. My name is Carl Jackson, and I'm urging you to call my friends at Priority Gold to find out how they can help you diversify your savings with physical gold and silver. Call 1-800-405-GOLD or visit prioritygold.com/golden for a free gold info guide. Plus, see if you qualify for free shipping and storage. Act now to get your portfolio working for you while the market is golden. Call 1-800-405-GOLD to speak with a gold specialist or visit prioritygold.com/golden to learn more. That's 1-800-405-GOLD. All right, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. Guys, earlier this week, RFK Jr.'s running mate came out and announced that RFK Jr. would be dropping out of the race, or would consider dropping out of the race and joining forces with President Trump to prevent a Kamala Harris presidency. And many people are saying, yes, do it. And as a matter of fact, RFK Jr. did come out later and announced that he was dropping out. So let's go ahead. I want to go back in time, if you will, and I want to listen to RFK Jr.'s running mate talk about this on a podcast. Let's go ahead and roll that. That is clip number 1. Please, por favor, Gabe.
There's two options that we're looking at, and one is staying in, forming that new party, but we run the risk of a Kamala Harris and Waltz presidency, because we draw votes from Trump, or we draw somehow more votes from Trump, or we walk away right now and join forces with Donald Trump, and you know, we walk away from that and we explain to our base why we're making this decision. Not easy.
Clearly.
Yeah, not an easy decision.
Okay. And listen, I love this. I love this. And I know there's a lot of people out there that believe this won't make a huge bit of difference. I, on the other hand, I believe that it can, and I believe that it can, particularly in swing states. Remember, you don't need tons of voters. You don't need millions and millions and millions of voters in order to win the Electoral College, in order to win these swing states. Remember, it was the 2020 election, regardless of how you might feel about that secure election, the most secure election ever, wink, wink. But regardless of how you might feel about that, it was basically decided in the swing states by tens of thousands of votes. I forget the number exactly, but it wasn't that many. So if you can imagine, if RFK Jr. is able to persuade some of his voters to align with Trump, then I think that puts Trump in a good position. But let me say this. I think it puts the Democrat Party in a better position going forward. Carl, what do you mean by that? How could you say that? Well, very easily. First off, one of the things that his running mate said is that they didn't want to risk a Harris-Walz presidency. That tells you this lady is to the left. RFK Jr. is to the left. but they fundamentally at least believe in the democratic process. They fundamentally believe in America. These are people that have been shut out of the democratic process, out of the primary process, unable to get their names on ballots because the Democrat machine went after them. This is something that I guarantee you they never expected, because they have been told that it is the right, it is the Republican Party that are anti-democratic, and then they experience this nonsense from their own party. I contend that not only could RFK Jr. dropping out of the race and endorsing Trump help Trump, but I would argue that RFK Jr. could help the Democrat Party simply by making sure that a democratic process, a primary process, continues in the future so that Democrats could actually pick their candidates. Guys, if they had had a primary, there wouldn't have been a Kamala Harris as the nominee, because she would have been exposed, as we're about to expose her right now. She would have been exposed. So I do believe that I do believe that RFK Jr. will save the Democrat Party, possibly, or he could likely, maybe save democracy, if you will, at least for the Democrat Party. Because I don't believe, after what we witnessed this year with Kamala Harris stealing the nomination, I don't believe that the Democrats intend to allow their voters to pick the nominee anymore. Ultimately, it's going to be, you better do what we say. They are an anti-democratic party, and RFK Jr. has an opportunity to make sure that the Democrat Party, and I do believe it should be a two-party system, that the Democrat Party has a primary process in the future. So kudos to him. All right, now let's get to Kamala Harris. I want to introduce you to Kamala Harris, and I may have to reintroduce you to Kamala Harris as time goes on. There was a report earlier, or a column earlier, from the Media Research Center with Brent Bozell's organization. And the title of it was Exclusive RMC Poll, Most Dem Voters Don't Know About Harris's Radicalism. So you and I know how radical Kamala Harris is, and the Trump campaign is starting to frame her. But most people don't know. Eerily so. I'm talking about most of the people that are going to decide the election don't know how radical Kamala Harris is. So it is incumbent upon those of you that are watching this podcast, or listening to this podcast, watching the TV show as it airs over the weekend on Salem News Channel, to share this information with your friends, with your family, with your neighbors. They can go to carljacksonshow.com. They can subscribe to the podcast wherever you find the podcast, wherever you find podcasts, The Carl Jackson Show. Check me out on all social media at The Carl Jackson Show, at The Carl Jackson Show. All right, but let me give you this summary of this of this column from the Media Research Center. A significant new Media Research Center poll finds that large majorities of registered Democrats and independents who voted for Biden in 2020, those who would be expected to support Kamala Harris this year, are mostly in the dark about many of the controversial and radical positions Harris has taken. Now, if any of these people are maybe liberal, not necessarily leftist, they might want to hear this information, and they should hear this information. They're voters, and they deserve to know who they're voting for. When asked about 10 different aspects of Harris's public record on issues as varied as her sponsorship of the Green New Deal, abolishing ICE, and eliminating private health insurance, between 71 and 86% of these Democrats and independents said they either had not heard of Harris's position or they were unsure. Listen to that. We are less than 90 days away from a presidential election, and between 71 to 86% of the Democrats and independents said they either had not heard of Harris's position or they were unsure. This is why the Democrats wanted to rush Kamala Harris in. This is why they wanted to do this big media campaign, because she is an empty pantsuit. That's all she is. This is all a charade. This is all gaslighting. This is all just a big major production. The lady is an empty suit. and she's an economic illiterate, which we found out. By the way, her numbers in the polling have dipped a little bit. Not that I would trust those per se, but I do believe we're starting to see a pattern. We're seeing the voting odds turn against Kamala Harris because I think she was unwise when and I'm glad she did, when she started unveiling some of her economic plan last weekend, talking about price gauging. Price gauging. But these voters got most of their political election news. I bet you can guess from whom. This is why they were so uninformed. They got most of their news about political elections and their candidates. By far the top answers were ABC, CBS, NBC, or cable news such as CNN and MSNBC. And these people are all oblivious. This suggests that the knowledge gaps found by our poll, MRC, reveal a failure of these outlets to report on radical positions once and perhaps currently supported by the now Democratic nominee for president. The article goes on. In fact, a detailed Media Research Center examination of ABC, CBS, and NBC evening news coverage in 3 weeks since Harris became the leading Democratic candidate on July 21st to August 10th shows 8 of these 10 issues received zero attention from these newscasts. Unbelievable. While 2 others received only minor coverage. The poll was conducted for the Media Research Center by the McLaughlin and Associates group between August 2nd and August 5th. The survey consisted of 1,200 people, 800 registered Democrats, 800 registered independents who reported voting for Joe Biden in 2020. Each was asked about where they typically receive their political news, as well as their familiarity with a list of left-wing positions. So each of these voters gave their top 2 picks for election news. Now, here were their top 2 picks. And I'm just building because I want to go into Kamala Harris's policies. I'm going to reintroduce you to Kamala Harris's policies. All right. So just over half, 50.2% listed broadcast television as their main source of news, followed by cable news at 41.2%, social media at 34.4%, online news sites at 23.9%, and search engines at 16.7%. A smaller number of respondents listed national newspapers, 10.8%, public broadcasting, 9.2%, local newspapers, 7.6%, radio, 4.9%, AI chatbots, 1%, as a main source of political information. Now, with all of that, remember, between 71 and 86% of these Democrats and independents said they either had not heard of Harris's positions or they were unsure. We'll be back. Earlier this week, the Labor Department announced that they had overestimated job growth by... Earlier this week, the Labor Department announced that they had overestimated job growth by 818,000 jobs, and they had to revise the data. My name is Carl Jackson, and I'm here to talk to you about wealth protection research. With the volatility from this election and our national debt just breaking $35 trillion for the first time ever, there has never been a better time than now to consider physical gold or silver as a way to protect your savings. I'm concerned that if this election goes sideways, things are going to get even worse. The good news is there's something you can do now ahead of whatever future chaos might be coming. Wealth Protection Research has found a gold partner in Sasco Gold that specializes in helping everyday Americans protect their retirement accounts like 401ks, IRAs, or TSPs using a loophole that allows them to convert into physical gold or silver tax and penalty free. All you have to do is text the word truth to 76626 to learn more. That's right. You can break free from your captive retirement account and enjoy the peace of mind knowing your retirement savings is now stored in physical gold and silver that you control. If you're interested in learning the truth about how you can protect your retirement with gold and silver, you can get a free gold investment kit that explains it all from Sasco Gold just by texting the word truth to 76626. Drew from Sasco is standing by waiting to help my listeners. Text the word truth to 76626. Tell Drew that Carl sent you. Again, for your free gold investment kit, text truth to 76626 and do it now. All right, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. Guys, I want to talk to you about the economy, and then we're going to continue to introduce you to Kamala Harris. But I had to set the table, if you will. I wanted you to understand what an abysmal job, and intentionally so, that the mainstream media is doing to go out of their way to make sure that independents and moderates, or Democrats even, are not informed about Kamala Harris's radical positions. Now, I want to share a couple of video clips with you, another of Michelle Obama, and also one we found out earlier this week that the Labor Department had to revise downward the job growth report by 818,000 jobs. So first, I want to play for you this clip of Michelle Obama, again, earlier in the week at the DNC convention. And she talks about how her parents were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed. So let's go ahead and roll that video clip number 4, please, Gabe.
You see, my mom, in her steady, quiet way, lived out that striving sense of hope every single day of her life. She believed that all children, all people have value, that anyone can succeed if given the opportunity. She and my father didn't aspire to be wealthy. In fact, they were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed. They understood that it wasn't enough for their kids to thrive if everyone else around us was drowning. So my mother volunteered at the local school.
Okay, so Michelle Obama says that her parents were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed. Does that apply to the Obamas that are worth north of $100 million, that have a mansion in Martha's Vineyard, one in Hawaii, I believe one in Palm Springs, California, if I'm not mistaken, one in the Washington, D.C. area, the Georgetown area, if I'm not mistaken? Does that apply to them? Does that apply to Kamala Harris and her husband that are multi-millionaires? Her parents were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed. Does that apply to Kamala Harris's economic policies when she's going after grocery stores that operate on 1.2 to 1.8% margins? Does that apply to Kamala Claus's economic plan when she wants to eliminate medical debt for millions that are going to be paid for by other taxpayers, or capping prescription drug costs that are actually going to cause shortages and cause prices to skyrocket? What about the $25,000 subsidies for first-time home buyers? I'm wondering if Michelle Obama's parents would be suspicious of Kamala Harris for taking more than she needs in order to try and win an election. 3 million new homes to tackle the housing shortage. Plus, now she wanted to target American businesses and go ahead and let the Trump tax cuts expire so that corporations pay 28% taxes instead of 21%, and thereby having to fire or get rid of employees. I just wonder. I'm really curious about that. And then we had this news because Kamala Harris and Biden wanted to try and look good, and claim that, listen, they created all these jobs. They're the Biden-Harris economy, Bidenomics, Kamalanomics. They created all of these jobs, right? Well, this broke earlier in the week, and I want to play this video for you. This is video clip number 2, Gabe, that we lost 818,000 jobs that the Harris-Biden administration claimed they had created, but they aren't actually there, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Let's go ahead and roll it, por favor, Gabe.
You know, the range of how many jobs they would take away for a variety of reasons, maybe the largest is the birth-death model for businesses, was going to be somewhere between 350,000 and 1 million. It comes in at 818,000.
Okay, so government figures, Hat Tip Daily Wire. Government figures for job growth over the past year have been significantly revised after being overestimated by 800,000 jobs. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported on Wednesday that job growth throughout the 12 months ending in March would be revised downward by 818,000 jobs, a drop that is roughly equivalent to half a percentage point of total jobs, according to the Washington Examiner. A downward revision of more than 501,000 would be the largest in 15 years. The drop knocks the average monthly job growth over those 12 months down from about 242,000 jobs to about 174. The revisions are preliminary and part of an annual review process that reconciles and revises monthly data with more reliable but slower coming records from state governments, according to the New York Times. So they bolstered their numbers and they just completely lied. They padded their numbers. And the truth of the matter is, this is indicative of where the economy really is. The economy is struggling under Biden and Harris, and it cannot sustain. We cannot afford another 4 years of Kamala Harris. Guys, Joe Biden has been virtually a vegetable for his entire presidency. Who do you think has been helping to run things behind the scenes? Susan Rice admitted that Kamala Harris was an integral part of the Biden-Harris decision-making process, policy process. All right? So she cannot run from this record. Now, speaking of her record, 10 things that you should know about Kamala Harris. And I'm going to get into these, take them one by one. So I'll read them all to you, and then we'll come back and break them down. So Harris supported cutting funding for police, so the defunding the police movement. Did you know that? Even if you do know that, many of your neighbors, your friends, your family members may not. She co-sponsored the Green New Deal. Did you know that she co-sponsored that craziness? All right. Harris supported the elimination of private health insurance. Harris supported reparations payments to atone for slavery. This despite the fact that she comes from a lineage, I kid you not, of slave owners. Number 5, as borders are, Harris never visited a conflict zone on the border. Number 6, this is from our MRC, Media Research Center. Number 6, Harris said it should not be considered a crime to enter the U.S. illegally. So do you really take her seriously when she says she's going to get the border under control? What has she been doing for the last 3.5 years? Harris supported abolishing ICE. Why would you support abolishing ICE and then have the audacity to say that you're going to get the borders under control? Harris promoted a fund to bail out the violent protesters during the BLM riots, the George Floyd riots of 2020. Harris would consider allowing death row inmates to vote. Yeah, because that should be a part of their last wish. Harris was named the most liberal U.S. senator in 2019, according to GovTrack. And of course, they tried to scrub that from the internet. So let's just take these one by one. The first one, Harris supported cutting funding for the police, the defund the police movement. So back in June of 2020, this was before she was selected as Biden's running mate. She told the Los Angeles radio show host Nick Cannon that she favored cutting police funding. This according to ABC News. So Harris told Power 106 Los Angeles host Nick Cannon that she believes we have to direct resources from police to other areas of government, mentioning schools and small businesses. This is what Harris said, and I quote, "For too long, people have confused achieving public safety with putting more cops on the street." All right. So those that are watching ABC, CBS, NBC, they wouldn't have heard of this. So as a matter of fact, the percentage of those Democrats and independents that are in the dark, 1,200 people polled, 800 Democrats, 800 registered Democrats, 400 registered independents. Of those people that were polled, 71% of them were in the dark about Kamala Harris's stance on defunding the police. And as a result of defunding the police, Minneapolis has fallen. Blue cities across the country have fallen, and they will lie and tell you that crime is down in our major cities that are run by Democrats, and that's a lie. They just don't report crimes the same way. Like the snatch and grabs in California, where you can steal up to $950. It used to be a felony offense. Now it's not even a misdemeanor. You can steal up to $950. So crime is being committed that's not being reported. People see that and they stop reporting crime. All right. And then there's not enough police out there. So it looks like crime may have gone down when the truth is the Democrats are just fudging the numbers. Harris also co-sponsored the Green New Deal. So as a senator in 2019, this would, by the way, give China a financial advantage over the United States of America, and this would not stop pollution one iota at all. We would just bring in, we would allow China to keep doing their thing, India to keep doing their thing, and then we would just gaslight Americans and try to make them feel good about themselves. So she, in 2019, was one of the original co-sponsors of the Green New Deal, and it had a laundry list of left-wing aspirations, including environmental and social justice, to make the sky cleaner. An economics writer at the time calculated the cost at $2.5 trillion a year. So this is a lady that's going to bring inflation down, but she wants the Green New Deal implemented, and basically they did that with the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a complete joke. Job losses would amount to about 1.4 million job losses and lead to more than 40,000 in lost income for a typical family of four. That's the real Kamala Harris. We'll be back. You've asked and MyPillow listen. They're finally bringing you the most requested offer ever. Right now, you can get the queen size premium MyPillow for only $19.98. MyPillow is made with the patented adjustable feel. It adjusts to your exact individual needs, regardless of your sleep position. It helps keep your neck aligned and holds its shape all night long, so you get the best sleep of your life. But that's not all. Get their 6-piece kitchen or bath towel sets for only $25. The brand new mattress topper for as low as $69.98, and their famous MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $25, and so much more. Go to MyPillow.com or call 800-858-0263. Use the promo code Carl to get huge discounts on all MyPillow products, including the premium queen size MyPillow that are only $19.98. That's the lowest price ever, so don't delay. Order today. Use the promo code Carl at MyPillow.com or give them a call, 800-858-0263. All right, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. I'm going to continue on introducing you to the real Kamala Harris. All right, so Kamala Harris also supported the elimination of private health insurance, like a one Barack Obama. Barack Obama wanted to lay the foundation with Obamacare. He wanted to make keeping private health insurance so costly that eventually you would be willing to give up your private health insurance and get on the government dole. Obamacare was always meant to make people get onto eventually turn into a single payer healthcare system. The guy that designed it, I believe his name was Michael Gruber, if I'm not mistaken, also helped out with Romney Care, basically said that was the intention. So Kamala Harris, during her first presidential campaign, she advocated for a fully government-controlled health insurance program nicknamed Medicare for All. Now, she's still talking about that today. And at a June 2019 candidate debate, she raised her hand when moderator Lester Holt asked the Democrats, quote, who here would abolish their private health insurance in favor of a government-run plan? So now Harris later backtracked, telling CBS This Morning the next day that she misheard the question as about giving up private insurance rather than abolishing it. Okay. So Harris insisted, quote, I am in support of Medicare for all. Okay. I'm scratching my head, metaphorically. So, which would apparently only permit private plans that follow existing Medicare standards. Now, 75% of Americans would be worse off, or close to 73.5% would be worse off, according to the Heritage Foundation. And yet 81% of voters, those independents and those Democrats, were in the dark about her position on eliminating private health insurance. Harris also supported reparation payments to atone for slavery. So during her 2019 campaign, Harris joined other far-left Democrats to support massive payments as a form of reparations to the descendants of those enslaved prior to 1865. This according to a PBS account. And they said Harris has proposed monthly payments to qualified citizens of any race in the form of a tax credit. Now, I do wonder if she would have to pay reparations, given her family's history. Guys, this is a complete and utter joke. There's no need for reparations. You don't pay people people that were not slave owners should not pay people that were not slaves reparations. Not to mention that the vast majority of Americans, particularly of lighter skin persuasion, came or are descendants of people that traveled to America, that immigrated to America through Paris Island after slavery ended in the United States of America. There's only 5 to 6% of Americans that have any association with slavery whatsoever. So this is just a moot point. This is complete nonsense, and it would bankrupt the country. Also, Harris as the border czar. You guys should know this. So she never visited the border at all. She went to somewhere far away from the danger zone, somewhere far away from the Rio Grande. I believe she went to, I'm not sure if it was El Paso, but anyway, she was several hundred miles away from the area where the most traffic, the Rio Grande, we were seeing. This is a lady that was the border czar. Media admitted that she was the border czar. Joe Biden, there's video of Biden, tapping her as the border czar. And then the media wants to believe that she wasn't. So she refused to go to the Rio Grande. That was the epicenter. Since then, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, have reported approximately 8 million border encounters in the Southwest region, revealing the extent to which Harris has failed as the border czar. And she is the border czar. All right. And her failure to visit the areas hardest hit by the crisis demonstrates a lack of interest in understanding and solving the problem. She has no interest in solving the problem because Kamala Harris doesn't believe an open border is the problem. She is a left-wing radical. This is a lady, I guarantee you, that believes that America is stolen land, and so we should open up our borders. And guess what? 70%, 72% of voters are completely in the dark about this. Now, remember, Lester Holt asked her in an interview, you haven't been to the border. Or he basically framed the statement, you haven't been to the border. And then Harris, taken aback, said, and I haven't been to Europe. I don't understand the point that you're making. You guys remember that? There's ads on that now, ads about that. I'm so glad the Trump campaign is working on that. Harris said it should not be considered a crime to enter the U.S. illegally. This is number 6. So it's California's AG. So that tells you she has no intention of closing the border. This is the real Kamala Harris. So in 2015, she denounced the idea of referring to illegal immigrants as criminals. She says, I'm a career prosecutor. She told this to CBS LA. She said, I personally prosecuted everything from low-level offenses to homicides. Unfortunately, I know what crime looks like. I know what a criminal looks like who's committing a crime, and undocumented immigrant is not a criminal. Really? So when they invade the country, Kamala, they're not a criminal? That's not a crime? This lady won't enforce the border. And as a matter of fact, she hasn't. She's been in office for 3.5 years. She's been the border czar, and she's done absolutely nothing to stem the tide of the illegal invaders crossing our borders. All right. This is insane. There was a headline earlier this week from Just the News. Quote, illegal border crossings surpassed 12.5 million since Biden-Harris took office. This is the most in U.S. history. So U.S. Customs and Border Protection released monthly border apprehension data on Friday saying, quote, statistics show lowest Southwest border encounters in nearly 4 years. CBP also claimed illegal border crossings were down by 34% from June to July, and the drop is due to a presidential proclamation that was issued in June. Troy Miller, he's a senior official performing the duties of the CBP commissioner, said recent Biden-Harris policies led to, quote, to the lowest number of encounters along the Southwest border in more than 3 years. In other words, it's been a disaster for over 3 years. A disaster. And despite that, those claims, the total number of apprehended illegal border crossers surpassed 10.5 million in July, with 2 months left in the fiscal year that ends on September 30th. And that number excludes 2 million gotaways. How do they know there's 2 million gotaways if they got away? I'm just not sure about that. So you're looking at least 12.5 million illegals that have entered the United States thanks to the Harris-Biden administration. Harris also promoted a fund to bail out violent protesters during the 2020 riots. So back on June 1st of 2020, in the wake of the George Floyd riots, Harris posted a message on both Facebook and Twitter promoting a nonprofit, quote, This is from Harris. If you're able to chip in now to the Minnesota Freedom Fund to help post bail for those protesting on the ground in Minnesota, all right, that was Kamala Harris. That was the vice president of the United States when you had rioters destroying billions of dollars worth of property, burning down cities, looting, and she's talking about posting bail for those people. No mercy on J6 protesters, though. 2 months later, the local Fox affiliate in Minneapolis reported, quote, among those bailed out by the Minnesota Freedom Fund is a suspect who shot at a woman who shot at police, a woman accused of killing a friend, and twice convicted sex offender, according to court records reviewed by the Fox 9 investigators. So Harris really isn't that tough on crime. Also, Harris supported abolishing ICE in June of 2018 in an interview with MSNBC's Casey Hunt. Hunt asked Harris about the abolish ICE, quote unquote, signs at a rally Harris had just attended. And she asked, is that a position you agree with? And then Harris made the case. I'm quoting, listen, I think there's no question that we've got to critically re-examine ICE and its role and the way it is being administered and the work it is doing. And we need to probably think about starting from scratch because there's a lot that is wrong with the way that it's conducting itself, and we need to deal with that. Their mission, I think, is very much in question and has to be examined. Starting from scratch for ICE? Is she crazy? And again, 77% of Democrats did not know that she took that position. As the borders are, and independents, as the borders are, 72% of people were in the dark because they listened to mainstream media. As far as illegal, Harris said it should not be considered a crime to enter the U.S. illegally. You had 74% that were uninformed on that issue. Harris would consider allowing death row inmates to vote. All right, so she said that on April 22nd, 2019, in a town hall event on CNN. Moderator Don Lemon asked Harris if she would want, quote, people who are convicted in prison, like the Boston Marathon bomber on death row, people who are convicted of sexual assault, they should be allowed to vote. Harris would not say no, instead replying, quote, I think we should have that conversation, close quote. And again, you have 86% of the voters of those Democrats and independents that were unaware of Kamala Harris's position that death row inmates should vote. Harris was also named the most liberal U.S. senator in 2019, even more liberal than Bernie Sanders, furthest to the left. And guess what? 75% of those Democrat and independent voters had no clue that she was rated the most liberal senator in 2019. Unbelievable. Until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you guys.